morning. It's Monday. So I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. We had some great racing with overseas with MXGP at Turkey, and then the Super Motocross playoffs, which I absolutely freaking love. I'd honestly like to see more races of these without the whoops. I just think it's awesome. Besides the bikes having to be set up to be incredibly fast, but then have the stiff enough for the G outs of the giant rhythm sections. It's a little counterintuitive, especially at the speedways, because these guys are hauling butt. And we've seen guys like Barsha crash. RJ ended up hitting the concrete wall. You had Jason Anderson end up not being able to finish. And then you had during practice a bunch of the guys over a start because, yes, I don't have a very popular opinion, but when last week we had, or the last show we did, Masterpool was on here and he was talking about split starts where you could constantly always have the top guys up front. And really during practice, I don't know why they do practice starts with everybody, because you saw AP go down, Malcolm go down, Jason go down. Like, it just is unnecessary. But anyway, I've got a very special guest. Okay. He is from Slovenia. This is a 24-year-old stud. He finished, dude, you finished 12th overall at the last GP there. He went 16 first moto, had some upsets. We'll talk about it. And then second moto was 9th. He was qualifying inside the top 5 to begin with. Over there were timed. And so this is an incredibly fast young man. And his name is Jan Pancar. Not bad. Okay, sweet.
Yeah,
sweet.
Good.
I have a really hard time doing that, Jan. But first off, dude, here we'll just get in Coach here as well, because we always know my co-host, Coach Rob. But
morning,
Jan,
guys.
I've been trying to get you on the show a couple times now, and I know with your flight schedules, with the MXGP schedule, you're constantly doing something. And you said that you're just getting ready for a trip to China, which you're looking for racing, but not so much the travel time. But at 24 years old, how did you get started riding?
My dad was just riding for fun, like a hobby, and I was just a little kid going with him on the track, and just when I was seeing everyone riding, I was like, I want the bike too. So I was really fast, like getting on a bicycle and stuff. So when I was 3 years old, I already started riding with my bike, the PV50, and then everything started from there.
Excellent, dude. Well, honestly, how did the whole MXGP come to fruition? Because what team are you on over there? Because I probably can't pronounce that as well.
I mean, I'm fully privateer, so it's my own team, me and my dad. I have some good like local sponsors from Slovenia that help me a lot. So that's how I can ride the MXGP full season. And yeah, it's a dream, and trying to be as good as possible to get that factory team.
Is this your first year over there racing?
Yeah, it's my first year in MXGP, and I was like, I think 4 seasons MX2.
Yeah, dang, dude. What is probably the biggest hurdle with that stuff? Is it just the travel money to try to get to the races?
Yeah, it's quite expensive and just quite a lot of work. We actually do everything by our own. Everything. I prep the bike for the trainings, for the races with my dad. So it's just a lot of work, but it's manageable. But for sure, I am more tired than I would say some other guys.
Dude, I commend you, because like here in America, privateers end up pissing and moaning about costs on stuff, and the series actually does a pretty good job in Supercross by having East and West, where you've got 8 races on your West Coast within 1,000 miles of you. We're not talking about going to races that are 2,500 miles apart across oceans. So I don't know how you do it, dude. And I know everybody on my channel absolutely freaking loves the privateers. So one
Yeah,
thing,
I mean, it's good that we have the most races in Europe, so it's not so far, you know. America is so big that if it wouldn't be East and West, would be really expensive. But yeah, it's still a lot of money. But yeah, we somehow manage it.
how do sorry there, messed up with that. Oh yeah, we've got some comments in here. Sylvanian Power from Reed. Heck yeah, dude. And I know it's like 4 p.m. where you are, so I appreciate you coming on here. And coach, is there any particular question before I get into some of the topics that we're talking about that you have for Jan?
When you mentioned that you and your dad, when did you guys decide to put your own MXGP team together? And one of the things that I think a lot of people on this side of the pond don't understand is how do you crate up your bikes and get those shipped around? Like you said, you're going to China next. What's the logistics of something like that look like?
So after, I mean, for the first year in MX2, we had like our own team. So the point is in MXGP that if you want to ride, you have to have a team. So if I wanted to ride without a other team, I had to do my own. But then after I was in like, let's say, a private team, but from Italia, and then we just decided it would be best to just be in our own team and just do our own thing. Because if you're not really in a like factory or really good team, it's just sometimes even worse than good. So yeah, that's why we decided to go this route. Uh, the question about the shipping, I mean, the in-front help us a lot, but it's still a lot of just managing with the email and stuff. We have to ship the bikes with in the box. So we need like a special box to put two bikes inside, and we have to be like just not too much kilograms because every kilo is more money. So yeah, it's more work. You have to prep everything, put the bikes inside and stuff. But yeah, we manage it.
What constitutes a team? You were saying that you got the status, you were riding for an Italian team and then you created
Yeah.
your own team. What's determined to actually be a, a team by MXGP standards?
Not much. It's just you have to have their license and some like stuff, but not like anything big. Just need to be, probably you have to be good enough to have, like, you have to have a good rider. It's just, and that's basically it.
I hate to bring up a negative question, but if they ever lost your bikes, if you crated them up and you started shipping them, did they
No,
ever lose them?
no. I hope it never happens. So for now, no.
How are you shipping that? Like over here, we have like FedEx or UPS. Is there just an international shipping company that everybody uses?
Yeah, exactly. Infront has like a contract with Cell, it's a company from Europe, and they organize all the logistics. I think for Turkey they bring everything by trucks,
Mm.
and now they go from Turkey to China with airplanes. So they organize that, so you have at least less work, but you still have to do some.
Yeah, that's incredible. When you talked earlier about wanting to be able to get onto a factory team, if you had all team options, which one would you choose at this point?
That's a good question. Uh, I mean, as I'm riding KTM, I would say KTM, and Red Bull is always like special. Just like from when I was a kid, I was always like Red Bull. But yeah, I mean, all the teams in Europe the factory teams are really good. So any factory team would, I think, would be really good.
That's awesome. Johnny, we've got to get you over to some of these MXGP races so you could kind of be his pit crew, be the videographer, be the media guy. Come on now.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
think-
Brandon wants to ask you, so do you
Yeah.
and your dad do all the wrenching, the mechanical stuff on your bike?
Yeah, we do everything, even suspension, like service, everything is like even the engine maintenance. We do everything. So, yeah, I'm lucky that my dad knows how to do all this stuff. So I learned from him. So, yeah, that's how we do it.
Dude, that's freaking incredible, especially with you getting top tens over there against the best guys in the world. And arguably, these guys are another step above the dudes here in America. I know the guys here in America don't want to hear it, but we had Degan decide not to go. Lots of guys are not wanting to go, and it's yes, it is money, but also it's the whole 10,000 hour rule. You guys ride moto year round, where moto is an afterthought here in America because of the money, right? As far as the manufacturers go, at least my contacts from Honda, Yamaha, their first priority is to throw money at Supercross for contingency and purse money and whatever. Then it is to you guys, MXGP. Then it trickles to the America for our motocross series. And then it goes on to the smaller series like GNCCs and Australia motocross and things of that nature. But I don't know, over the last 15 years, it might not even be that long, but pretty much since the end of the James Stewart Carmichael era, that's when the guys here with guys like Dungey, I think Dungey was like the last guy to help win for Team USA. And so we've been struggling for a little bit. Maybe I have to look it up. The guys in the comments will definitely point me out on my mistakes. But
just out of curiosity, Jan, have you ever ridden a Supercross track?
I would say no. Never rode like a whoop section. I would say I was riding Supercross. Let's say a hybrid, no whoops. But yeah, I mean, that's a problem. I think in Europe we don't have we have zero tracks like for the Supercross. Maybe I see some Italians have it and France, but otherwise it's just you cannot train it. So yeah, I hope they can maybe do some good European championship in Supercross and we have more options. So yeah, I was never riding it, but for sure it's true that we ride the whole season in motocross, and you guys in America are riding Supercross and motocross. So it's difficult, but I think it's pretty close with the speeds. This year, Degan is really fast, and Sexton and Jet are really, really, really good. So I think the MX of Nations this year is gonna be interesting. Just unfortunately, Degan is not coming.
When you look at these WSX races, with them being the hybrid without the whoops, how do you think you would do in it? I know that's putting you on the spot. I'm not trying to make you sound egocentric, but when you look at the track, would you enjoy that type of a track format and layout?
Yeah, I would say yes, but the track was really fast. And I saw like on the straightaways they were jumping like in the ruts. That was kind of sketchy. And yeah, I saw that they were a little bit struggling with the suspension because you have to have it stiff, but for that long straightaways was too stiff, you know. Yeah, I mean, would be hard to get used for the like let's say Supercross lane. There was really hard. I even saw the top guys were struggling because it was really steep. So I don't know. If I would train one winter, I think I could be there around 10 probably.
Would you run a scoop or would you run a paddle tire when you look at those dirt conditions?
I mean, for the red soil, you have to go with the heart. Cause, but I heard Tomac was riding and he was fast, so I think you can. And now that the scoop is so good that you can ride anything almost.
That's Johnny's favorite subject, scoop tire.
Oh, because everyone, I mean, the
Yeah,
broadcast, they always talk about like how awful that tire is, but I'm like, go buy one of those tires
yeah,
and
it's
ride
not
it.
that bad. It's
No,
not that bad.
and you've got much more straight line speed and stability. It's just a little bit on the sides, you
The
know.
problem is when you come to like that it's completely hard. Then there is like it started to slip faster. But when there is nice dirt, you can ride in like everywhere, basically.
You heard it from a dude that's way faster than I am. We've got a top 10 MXGP guy here that arguably a privateer effort. He's his own mechanic. So I say, dude, give you the right motorcycle and you'd surprise a whole hell of a lot of people. To carry on to what Coach was saying, with guys like Prado, we know we've seen him over here. He's coming over here next year in 2025 for the Cowie stuff. And we've
Yep.
got some news about Cowie too. But guys like Tim Geiger, Jeffrey Hurlings, your honest opinion, it's okay if it's biased, how you think they do in the super motocross stuff. If just to snowball it to you, I would say that these guys would honestly give Jet a run for his money on a super motocross track with no whoops. We've seen guys like Tom Vial. He won a championship because we had changed the rules about whoops. One whoop section, and you can only have like 10 of them to where you can basically enter them blind and have two big jumps and you're out of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they train one winter, they could be close for sure. Now going directly, you have to be more in the supercross stuff. I think they would lose too much time there. But yeah, I mean, I think everything is really close because everyone now is really, really fast. So your top guys are really good. So would be interesting to see like if they make something together, you know.
If you were able to come stateside, would you go California or would you go Florida, knowing what you've seen on your side?
Hmm, that's a good question. I don't like the heat, so California and Florida is hot. So I don't know. I mean, I would say California is better to live, but Florida is better for the training, probably. So, but it's interesting that I would say only guys that is like you guys in America that you train all the time on the same track. Like we in Europe always try to switch the tracks all the time, so you have like every time it's like a fresh track, you have to adapt and stuff. So it's interesting that you guys always like go to the facility and just train on the same track, and it still works, but it's probably easier for the mental side to go to the different tracks to be more fresh.
It's interesting you say that the mental side would be more refreshing going to different tracks when we hear
Yeah.
the exact opposite. What we hear is the familiarity, the idea that going to a new track. And this is something that Johnny and I've talked about off the record. When you talk to some of the top agents, a lot of the discussion points now stem around the riders are becoming what they refer to as one dirt wonders. If you're East Coast, you're good on East Coast dirt. If you're, to your point exactly, because you've grown up on one facility type of dirt, sure, they might change the directions, they might change
Yeah.
certain obstacles, but dirt type and terrain and all of that, they kind of get themselves into a lane and they don't deviate from it. And this is something that Johnny and I've talked a lot about. When you look at the MXGP riders, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 65s when they race at Lommel, the 85s, what's the duration of their races? Isn't it 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
I think 65 is like 12, yeah, 12, but for the 85, it's already 20, I think.
and that's on the same track that you guys are riding.
Yeah.
That's what's amazing over here is when you look at the idea that the amount of complaints we get that the tracks are too difficult, like you say, they don't like to change up, they don't like to go to different tracks. Definitely think it hurts us in the long run, that's for sure. But it's interesting that you see it as a mental relief to go to different tracks versus riding the same track over and over again. It's pretty insightful.
Yeah, I just find it like, it's okay, you prep the track and but always becomes like pretty similar. So you just be like on, let's say, autopilot and just ride because you already know how the track becomes and how the lines become. So I think it's better to switch, and when you come to the race, it's always different tracks, so you have to adapt, and it's easier to adapt if you're riding different track. That's what I think. But maybe if they just like Florida, they have few tracks and they can just switch more a little bit in the close area, so you don't have to go like around. I think that would be the best solution.
Are there any conditions that you guys won't ride in? I've had the privilege of working with Liam Owens, and he's with the Cat Moto team, and I see him on Instagram, and it could be, 0 degrees, spitting snow, spitting rain, could be muddy, it could be dry, but still wet, freezing cold. And then there's the other extremes, hot, dusty. Are there any conditions that you guys won't ride in for you, particularly training wise?
I mean, when it's like frozen, then it's no go. When the ground is just completely hard. But otherwise, yeah, you just go training because it's better than nothing, right? And the conditions, you never know what you have on the races, and I think it's better if you even train on the harder tracks than it's on the race. So when you come to the race, it's easier. So
Yeah, this track
yeah,
looks like it sucks.
That looks rough.
that's my home track. So yeah.
Oh, that doesn't look like any fun whatsoever.
Yeah, that was in the winter, so it was really wet and soft. So it was pretty hard, but really good training.
Jan, we have a comment that says from Desert Rat MX, what's up with confusing the scoop with the Sand Dude paddle tire? They're totally radical. There have been some instances, at least here in America, where people that aren't as, I would say, versed in the sport, that they think that guys are running, whenever they say a scoop tire, they're running the gigantic sand paddle tire, but
Yeah.
that's not a racing tire.
No, it's just the scoop. It's like pretty similar to the hardpack tire, but just a little bit different positions of the knobbies and more space in between them. So it's not such a big difference.
Hey, Johnny, I was going to see if you could get video. You mentioned in your recap video after the race that Chase had cut his tires to get a little bit wider. I wanted to get video of him sitting with a razor, sitting in a lounge chair, kind of like the days of a box fan.
I doubt he's the one doing that. No, yeah, those tire cutting tools are awesome.
But when you said that, I was just imagining, Sexton with his headphones on, he's got his Beats on, and he's got a tire. He's got his bike up on a stand, and he's cutting all of his knobbies. I'm like, that would be the ultimate video, watching Sexton cut his tires. Just the way you said it in your video, that's the first thing that came to mind was, like Bob Hanna and O'Mara, those guys in the back of their box fan, with Keith McCarty back there working on the bike for Bob. That's what I envisioned.
But let's be honest. Nowadays, factory guys are prima donnas. They're not going to do any of that stuff. But I believe, God, whose bike was this? Dun dun dun. Was this Anderson's MX-34 that they cut off the backside of the knobbies to try to make their own scoop tire? And yeah, I thought that was a little interesting. But they also have crazy different compounds that we're not allowed to you can't buy. And so that was one of the best things about being a privateer is with not the Dunlop guys, but the Pirelli guys, whatever the riders weren't using, or after qualifying, they would just throw them away. So you could go down there, and as long as you were a sponsored guy from them, you could take this special compound tire and put it on your bike. But that leads to a question, Jan, is MXGP truthfully just like unlimited where as far as the bikes? Because I've always just heard that, we have to have the production rule here in America, and yeah, factory bikes are still considerably better than anything you can buy off the showroom because of that ECU. But to the factory bikes here in America, there's another step up to like the bikes of Tim Geiger and Jeffrey Hurlings.
Yeah, I mean, in Europe, we actually have like almost zero rules, just minimum weight, sound, and the mark, like it has to be 450, that's maximum, or 250. And that's basically it. So the factory guys, they can change anything they want. The frame, the engine, triple clamps, so they can do anything they want. So yeah, I don't know what they do everything, but they could do. I think is the biggest thing is that they can do the bike that suits the rider the most.
Crazy. So as long as you have enough money, you could do whatever you wanted with it. And from outside looking in, I will give my personal opinion on it last, but I want to hear from you, Jan, and then you, Coach. This is probably the biggest thing that has hit the United States was Carter Gray getting docked for jumping this finish line when they're putting an all-star race together of the best 7 to 11-year-olds in America, putting them on a professional track that's not designed for these little bikes, but then limiting them for jumping stuff because of potential safety. So, Jan, I was doing a group ride with some friends, and I had a couple team owners call me because they wanted me to have my information right. And so here's the information that I got. So this individual, these guys all were jumping this. There's like 3 or 4 guys jumping this major finish line. And right before the main event, they had a meeting together, and they said that it's unsafe. It's unsafe to jump it. So do not jump it. It's going to be a big problem if one of you jump it. And so the kid that eventually won, Carter Gray, he jumped in, I believe, on lap 2 and 3. And I think there was one kid behind him that ended up jumping, but nothing happened to him. And before I get more into my opinion, what is your opinion on this little boy winning the race, but then getting docked to 3rd?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I mean, props to him for jumping. It's like crazy to go with the 65, that big jump. But I mean, it's kind of strange that they say, yeah, you cannot jump it. But yeah, if they really stated before the race, if you jump, you get penalized, then I understand. But if they just said, don't jump it, I don't know, maybe a warning or something would be more appropriate. But yeah, I think it's motocross. So if you can jump it and others can't, then props to you and they lose, So I don't know. I think they shouldn't say no.
Hey, I appreciate the honesty, dude. Coach, I haven't heard your opinion on this yet.
Well, if you follow me for any period of time, if they told him not to do it and he does it, he got what was coming to him. I do agree with Jan. It's just amazing to think that there was a couple 65 riders that would jump a track. If you kind of back this entire process up, Johnny, you and I and all the subscribers and listeners, you and I can't go down to somebody who owns a Supercross track and get on a Supercross track without a pro license, but yet we allowed 65s out there. Now, granted, this doesn't have the big whoops like you said earlier. So to me, it's like there's so many dichotomies going on here. You and I can't, or you could because you were a pro, but like I couldn't go down and ride this track because I don't have a pro Supercross license. So why in the world do we have little guys on a track that's supposedly only for the professionals? And I get the idea that it's an exhibition race. I get all that goes with it. It's cool. To me, rules are rules. Don't break the rules, otherwise pay the consequences. Pretty zero, zeros and ones, black and white. The other thing that scares me about this, and you can kind of see it right here in this video that you're letting play live, as he comes up to that jump, see the little kid rolling behind him? What if it was switched and that little kid was 20 feet, 30 feet in front of him, and this kid goes full send mode, and he knows he's coming down, and there's a little guy rolling it, and he lands on top of him? And what I mean by that is these little guys aren't used to anybody jumping something that big. So that's one of the things that's so cool. Remember when Anderson got jumped on in Des Nations? Completely accidental, but stuff like that happens. So it's almost like trying to keep these kids. I mean, would you say, Johnny, 2 out of all of them were actually jumping that? So, I mean,
I believe 3 of them were jumping it.
So, I mean, in all fairness to them, like Jan said, if you can do it, that's incredible. That's what separates the men from the boys. Go for it. But in this case, when the jumps are so damn big and you can't really see what's on the other side of it, at least rolling it, you at least reduce the risk of getting jumped on. But to me, I always want to back the train up. It's like, I would love to ride this track. Oh, you don't have a pro Supercross license. Oh, you can't go ride it. 65s. I think they're doing 85s in the next one. And then I think they're doing the B class on the next one. So just, again, a lot of dichotomies going back and forth. To me, you broke the rules, you pay the price. There's been all kinds of conversations. If you really didn't want the guys to jump it, we could go after the good old flaggers and have a constant yellow, or what is it? A red cross flag saying
there's lights on the finish line on all of them.
Yeah.
They could have just run the lights during the entire.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of, you can't just say it's one side or the other. To me, did he get what he, was it badass that he jumped it? Absolutely. Did he break the rules? Yes. Did they penalize him? Yes. I still question why you're putting 65s on a track like this when a lot of the people who are listening to this are really good on a dirt bike, but we couldn't go race it if our life depended on it. So I don't know, just a lot more questions than answers. It's very easy to get on one side of the fence or the other. That's what I love about our community here. We can agree to disagree, and no one's going to cancel us or, go off the deep end. But props to this dude. And hey, Johnny, a little side note: did you see the post-race interview? He got to go to the press conference afterwards.
Oh, I did not.
Okay,
see that.
So they not this guy, but the guy that ended up getting the win. He's like sporting his new factory Suzuki ride that he just got after picking up the win here, after this guy gets docked 2 points. Just all kinds of moving parts going on in regards to what the hell is this all about. So that's where I stand with it. Props to Carter. He's caught a lot of people's attention, even at Loretta's last year. I mean, because he overcame a lot of adversity. But yeah, the dude is a household name. So what do you say, Johnny? All press is good press?
Yeah. And dude, this is amazing for his stock price because of what has gone on here.
Yeah.
And I know I made a little reel about it saying that he should have just gotten a warning, but that's not the complete context of the issue here, because the number one issue is safety, right? And my problem with it is the lackluster of safety. If you really told these kids, do not jump it, you're going to get penalized, then you make effing sure that they're not going to try to jump it during the race by having the red cross flag out there, making them go around the jump.
Go around
right?
it. Yep.
Something,
I agree.
As opposed to you're letting 7 and 11-year-olds have their own destiny and you're telling them to be mature, to not to follow rules. Like, that's the problem here. And that's what I have against what the AMA did. And second, how many people did this little kid inspire by doing this? A lot of the little kids in the stands, they're not going to remember that Jet Lawrence won the race. They're going to remember that Carter Gray jumped that freaking finish line, and they want to be just like Carter Gray, right? So there is so much that this kid influenced everyone on, and it's just such a shame that he ended up having a moment like this where he could have gone to the press conference and he's raising up, he's winning, and now he gets to feel like he did something wrong, which In reality, yes, he broke the rules, but the problem I have a little bit further is how many times do we see the professionals break the rules and then they just get a written warning or probation? They don't get docked. When was the last time we saw somebody that won a Supercross race lose the race because of an infraction that they were docked? It doesn't happen, right? I do understand that Cooper Webb was penalized 6 positions in the same race, but he was also running like 8th at the time. He wasn't winning the race, right? So if you're going to be this harsh, it needs to be throughout the entire field. But coach, you make a very important note that if he were to land on somebody, it would be awful. And then on live TV, if these kids case this and they broke their femur, it would be awful. But again, that's up to the sanctioning body and AMA to prevent these kids from jumping these jumps that these bikes aren't designed to do. Make them go around it, or for that matter, don't have them race a professional Supercross track that the suspension is not set up, let alone anything is capable of. Yeah, these guys have major cojones, and this could have ended wrong. But I will say the last thing on this is, if I was in second place and I was the dad and I saw him break the rules like that, protest. I'm going to protest. I'm going to protest, because that's what happens in amateur racing all over it. It's all about protesting. So now you have a situation where he did break the rules and we've got second and third place potentially protesting. What do? Oh, we have to dock him because now we got to go to the rule book and that sort of thing, you know? And I really think that's the reason why he got penalized, was because the kids behind him were protesting him. Regardless.
Well, you bring up a really good point, though. You bring up a really good point. Who are the other 2 guys that let's say that there were 3 guys legitimately jumping it. What were their names?
I don't know.
That's my point exactly. Right. So this guy, because he gets docked, everybody's talking about Carter Gray. We don't even know the names of the other 2, and we all watched the race. So when you, at the end of it, and you talked about this in your reel that you put out immediately, this guy has nothing to be ashamed of, because 99% of the support of the sport is supporting him in what he did. Just like Jan said, if you can do it, especially at this age, they're going to do it. Like somebody here in the chat room said, I think Reed was the one that said it, in moto, if it's doable, you do it. That's what makes moto so badass. So yeah, it is a shame, because the other 2 kids that were jumping it aren't getting a 10th of the credit that this guy's getting. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Do we continue to see 65s at future races? Do they do a workaround on the finish line jump? I mean, Lord only knows what we'll see next.
Yeah. And I will go maybe one step further. Is, again, you're putting the destiny into these 7 to 11-year-olds, which aren't mature enough to really make their own decisions, right? That's why you have guardians. Okay. That's why their parents have to sign waivers. And coach, you just said the kid that won this was sporting a new factory team at the press conference. Mm-hmm. So for me, outside looking in, this race meant a lot. There was a lot on the line for these kids' future, right? And so now you're trying to tell them that, oh, this is an exhibition race. Don't go out there and try to beat all these guys and show what you're made of. But whoever does potentially is going to get a contract on a factory team and help their family out and everything. It's backwards. That's where I go with AMA should have had Red Cross flags. They should have had the guys standing there or something to where it's wheels on the ground, the lights flashing, that whole orbit. But I think we've...
Here's an ironic twist. You've got the young man that was awarded the win in a class that Suzuki has no bikes, and Suzuki gets the coverage at the press conference with a Suzuki shirt, not the bike that he rode at the race. Don't enough said.
No, that is incredibly.
Wouldn't that piss you off if you provided him, you provided him a bike that he goes out and he essentially podiums, whether it was first, second, or third, and then he by default gets the win, and he's out there with somebody else's colored jersey on announcing his new ride. Nothing like saying thanks with a FU right at the same time.
Yeah. Jan, would you ever ride a Suzuki?
Sure, why not? I think it's not that bad, If Roxen can ride that good, should be pretty. But
Yeah, but
come on,
Rockstar
just
has a
do the
lot of
starter.
support. He's got a lot of support there, which that is also a good segue here is, Coach, did you want to potentially talk about what may be going on with Team Green over here in America?
Well, it's been pretty interesting. I started hearing rumbles of this a couple months ago, and then you know how you hear a few things and then it gains a little momentum and a little more momentum. Now with Degan just absolutely waxing the field, you know, this past weekend, I think, in my personal biased opinion, I think it was one of the best displays of how good Degan really is on a track that's difficult to pass. You know, would he go from like fifth or sixth all the way to the front? Not once, but twice. It's no secret that Degan's probably going to do his own team, whether or not Chad's going to be involved with that or whatnot. And so you start hearing some rumbles that, you know, obviously Degan's a monster guy. He's been with his dad since day one. Can you imagine all of a sudden you see a Ford, Toya tires, monster, fill in the blank, Kawasaki? Think about this, because if Monster is going to go ahead, and that's, you know, there's some discussions about what Monster is or isn't going to do next year, and you start understanding, you kind of put all the musical chairs and the pieces and parts together, the idea that maybe a relationship with Cowie's coming to an end. I've heard this from a dozen people. If that's coming to an end, that tells me that something's got to be set up. Who's the next heir apparent? Degan. What's Degan? He's been a long time Monster guy with his dad. All of a sudden now you've got a Degan racing team, whatever color. Let's just say, you know, a couple people and I have talked about this off the record. You know, he would never go to Honda, right? Honda wouldn't allow there to be. You look at Yamaha, he's already there. They're a monster team. He could never go to KTM because of Red Bull. So you start doing the musical chairs and you start moving the pieces out of play. Can you imagine Degan and Brian's relationship? And I'm just going to pull a company that Brian's had a lot of relationships with, Ford, someone we don't see in our sport. Now you've got a Ford, Monster, Toya tires. Remember when Pro Circuit came out at Orlando with the Peak antifreeze bikes? Nobody could tell what color, what brand bikes those were, because they were blue and white. Remember that when it was Buell and McGrath at Orlando? The first time we ever saw Pro Circuit, Team Peak, nobody knew if that was a Suzuki, Cowie, Honda. You didn't know.
Those ivories were sick, though.
They were. But think about Degan. Degan could have any bike motor underneath them and make the plastics whatever color he wants. But now you've got a Ford, Monster. I keep going back to Toya tires. I think that's who Brian worked with, but maybe I'm wrong. It doesn't matter. Let's just say you've got an off-road truck tire. You've got Ford. You've got Monster. You get Kicker in there. Pull back an old shoe company like Vans. Remember when everything was DC shoes? That's when they had AC and they had Ian Treadle. You know, the sneaker business used to be invested in the moto industry, just like the drink companies are today. It was like who could get their shoe on what rider. That kind of evaporated. Then you look at the sports drinks or the energy drinks now, and then you look at something like Degan. If he goes ahead and he gets a lion's share of Monster's marketing dollars, this kind of reminds me a lot, if anybody has watched the documentary on when Nike put all their money into Michael Jordan. They took their entire annual advertising budget and put it into Jordan. And if you haven't watched that documentary, I think it's on that ESPN show 60, I think it is. And you see the risk that company took. Now, we all know the rest is history, right? I think, was Jordan make a year like $200 million a year just on his signature shoe? Are we going to see that kind of investment by Monster into Degan and what they're about to do? Because they can, I mean, they can go any direction they want. If you really boil it down, there's no place that they can't go. They are their own marketing machine.
They're going to benefit from that, right? Because they're not going to remove their stuff from Star Yamaha, right?
Not until next year, right? So he'll probably stay at Yamaha next year, and then he'll go 450 for outdoors. And then you look at 2026, he can go to Ducati, he can go to Kawasaki, he can stay at Yamaha.
Maybe Triumph. They might have a 450 by then. I mean,
yeah, but think about it. Triumph doesn't have a sports drink, energy drink. So that's a plus. You look at Ducati, they don't have an energy drink. That's a plus. When you look at the ideas, Yamaha is a monster. That's a plus.
Well, Ducati, I think they do. We've seen Monster on the Ducatis when
Okay.
they were, yeah.
So if you put that together, it's like if you're Degan and Brian's out there making some phone calls for 2026, think about who he's negotiating and what he's negotiating. Ducati, Triumph, Kawasaki, Yamaha. And he's sitting over here going, look, I've got my own program. Who wants to put the most behind us from R&D? Because it could be a Kawasaki underneath the hood, but he could be running black graphics with spikes out the back fender. It wouldn't matter. And that's what's going to make this such an interesting dynamic over the next 18 months, because we know Monster will never let him go. I don't see Thor letting him go, because I think right now he is their biggest rider, even more so than Webb. So you look at the fact that his gear's dialed in there. I do think it's interesting. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but doesn't Degan run an Alpine Star helmet?
God, I need to look at this.
think
One
so.
sec.
I think it's an Alpine Star helmet with the Thor gear. And then you start putting that together. It's like, okay, well, so he's got some relationships with A-Star, and we've seen what A-Star has done. I don't know how they're affording the salary of Sexton, the Lawrence brothers, Anderson. That's a big payroll. But it just seems like A-Star has been really aggressive this last 2 years for that matter. Is that an A-Star helmet?
Yeah, that is. Along
Okay.
with his boots and chest protector.
So if you just kind of step back and you keep an open eye and you look at the idea that, okay, Degan's contract, let's say all of his contracts are up, Yamaha, Thor, he's got these ancillary relationships with A-Star. We've seen what A-Star's done. Let's say in 26, Tomac officially retires. Well, that frees up his money. That goes over to Degan. So now Degan's an A-Star from head to toe on a Ford Monster. And you look at the idea that they are their own agency from a marketing standpoint. They literally have all of the pieces and the parts to do whatever they want. They've got the discretionary funds. What facility do you remember when, was it just even last year? Or was it 2 years ago when Roxon was trying all the different color bikes?
I think that was 2 years ago.
And it brought a lot of life back to Roxon. Remember how much that mileage that got? Can you imagine Degan going out and trying every color bike and putting a video behind it? I mean, shoot, he gets 500,000 views when he shows himself tying his shoes. I mean, can you imagine him testing 6 different colors of bikes? He'll blow the internet up.
Yeah, he definitely has a lot of clout.
Yeah,
for sure. But he's honestly paving the way for a lot of new kids coming through, which is really cool, as he's being influential. And I haven't really seen him do anything out of the realm of potentially just being a growing young man. Like, he's had his dad has done a fabulous job with being a mentor for him. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also been.
What did Carter Gray do at the end of the video? You kept showing over and over again. What did Carter Gray do at the end of the video?
He ghost rode his bike. Yeah.
And who made that a novelty in moto?
Yeah. Brian did. And then
to your point,
did it. Yeah.
To your point about, and then Degan did it. And then who else did it? Jet did it.
And then
Sexton did it. And now Carter Gray did it.
Jan, do you guys ghost ride the bike at all in MXGP when you win?
I don't think so. I didn't see that. Yeah.
I like Jan's face is kind of frowned like, huh?
Yeah.
Ghost ride a bike. Why would you do that?
You know, there's different parts of the world where some stuff is offensive, and then other times it's just completely the norm. How do guys respect their machinery over an MXGP? Do you guys treat it like gold, and it's very offensive if you throw your bike down out of frustration, or what?
I mean, I don't know. For the ghost ride, I think that's not a problem if you win a championship or something like that, But yeah, if you I don't know, the bike stops and you throw it on the ground or something like that, it's offensive, It's a bad image for the manufacturer. So yeah, they don't like that,
Yeah, and we have seen Degan kick his motorcycle over and throw his helmet and all sorts of stuff. Let's just say here in America, we're potentially more woke and oversensitive about stuff. And yeah, but
So me getting disappointed that Degan kicked his bike is me being woke. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that there's definitely been, oh God, I opened my mouth here. So
No. I just want to, I just curious if you think that Degan doing that is he's woke or he's not woke because he can show his emotion. Because a lot of people said he's just showing his disappointment, which I understand, but I'm on public record on your show saying that if I'd kicked that bike, my dad would wipe the floor with me when I got back to the rig.
It's okay. I'm using the terminology as overall as a country, we are overly sensitive, but then we're also like, what's the right word? Where we're desensitized to stuff, where it takes a lot to go, wow, where you go 20, 30 years ago, it didn't take that much to have a wow factor here. And, we even saw it with the Super Motocross this weekend where you had James Stewart talking about his dad telling him, oh yeah, heck yeah, you have to jump it. You have to jump it. You have to jump that jump. And I do find it interesting that the broadcast guys didn't know that it was illegal for the kids to jump it because they were all rooting for the kids to jump it. And I think maybe you should tell the guys that are narrating the race that, hey, they're not supposed to jump this. There's something going to be coming up here. Like, that's valuable information that the broadcasters should know. And a little bit of a changing subject to get me out of the hole. Progressive has now been seen on here. I'm playing with my daughter's toys. Has been seen on the factory HRC stuff now and KTM, and they're a title sponsor for the whole Super Motocross stuff right now. What does that leave Kenny with? That was his big money coming in for that Suzuki.
What is Progressive's role at KTM? We saw the official announcement, title sponsor of HRC, but what is the affiliation with KTM?
I don't know. It can't be a whole lot because it was on the back fender of Sexton's bike where the whole shroud was covering the HRC stuff.
Well, and then even the broadcast did the official announcement that they are the title sponsor of HRC. So I'm just curious what that affiliation with Progressive is with KTM. I mean, it's great that they're in the sport at such a deep level, but I don't know what the affiliation is with the KTM team. Honda, I mean, that's their first title sponsor, as we talked about, since Muscle Milk. So,
yeah, and I guess what I'm just alluding to is is it going to become another Geico Honda deal where once a series gets a hold of them, they start losing some, Kenny's going to lose some of that affiliation. And that would be the reason why Kenny doesn't go with Suzuki anymore. Again, it's just kind of alluding to Tomac, Kenny, and possibly Degan going to Ducati, Triumph, something of that nature.
Are you thinking that's going to happen as early as next year? Because obviously the Progressive thing is in place, right? I mean, we saw it on the bikes this weekend. They made their full announcement of it.
I mean 2026, right? I don't think 2025.
You think that Progressive deal is going to be there for Honda, KTM, and Kenny in 2025? That'd be a stretch. That's a ton of money.
Yeah, that's where I'm alluding to. What is Kenny going to do here? Because it's looking like potentially that money is being siphoned somewhere else. Because talking with the guys that were the Geico Honda dudes, they had a hard time selling back to him that they said, hey, we're getting this much exposure and we're, giving Geico this much more revenue. And then after a couple of years, they're like, hey, how are you going to justify new viewership? Because we're just like a little sticker on your bike. Then as soon as they went to the whole series, boom, instantly kicked off of Geico. And then that team just went.
Mm-hmm. Jan, what's your thoughts?
I mean, it's good that like big sponsors come in the sport, but I don't know. We will see. I heard some rumors for Oxen, but I'm not gonna say anything. So,
whoa, you can't do that. Come on, Jan. All right, Jan, you're gonna have to leak the biscuit once the show ends and we're not live anymore.
I don't know. Maybe.
He can't do that. You can't do that to us.
Well, the
Can
one
we
thing
guess? Can we guess? And you just nod your head. Dude, honestly, I don't want to play poker with you. I don't
that, well,
maybe after the show we can talk about it.
yeah. Well, we know that Kenny's got the World Supercross, and that's cool that they're bringing Tomac in there. So at least Kenny's going to be okay for the rest of the second half of this year. But it'll be interesting to see the timing of that going into 2025. Does he just do World Supercross, collect another $1 million, and then do Ducati in 26? I mean, or does he go to Triumph since they're a year behind on their bike? Because that's the thing. If Kenny gets bumped from Ducati, then it would only make sense that Triumph, or depending on who's doing the money bidding game over there. And then we also have to remember you've got Degan coming in 26, as we said earlier.
Yeah, lots of rolling pieces here. And sort of somewhat to wind down the show here, Jan, the UK, they are starting aggressively to promote their new Arena Cross series, where they're going to have, I think, 9 races potentially. Is that something that after MXGP you'd want to try to participate in, or?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. Would have to get training on the Supercross, and after watching some videos, it's not really a safe sport, it's just carnage all the way. So I don't know. We will see.
Okay. Interesting subject that you brought up here. What makes Supercross more dangerous than Moto? Because the speeds are quite a bit faster in Moto, and the time on the track is quite a bit longer as well.
Yeah, it's just the rhythms are so much harder to jump. The tracks are more narrow, so just small mistakes cost you a lot. In motocross, you can do a small mistake and you just lose, let's say, a few seconds, and you're okay. But if you do like a mistake in Supercross, you can crash really hard. So that's why it's much harder, I think.
Well, I mean, I would agree with you as well. Sometimes with the speed of Moto, you've got the whole physics with inertia behind you, where you're boo doo 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 doo, and in Supercross, the speeds aren't as high, and there's an obstacle in front of you. So usually when you stop, it's like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of guys in Supercross where usually the field gets cut by 1/3 before Moto begins because of everything. And we've heard other guys like Filthy Phil talk about how training for Supercross is incredibly dangerous because you have to ride at race pace at 110%, and whenever you make a small little mistake, it's boom. And in Moto, sometimes you can just drop the elbow and you can ride out of it. And Supercross, it's really hard to whoop section an entire rhythm lane wide open. Something usually catches you. And I've also heard a lot of professional riders speak up a little bit about the tough blocks, where they would like them to be more triangle shape. Or I believe the Paris Supercross, maybe we'll see it this year too. They've had the best tough blocks ever for the whoop sections. It was like a giant one tough block to where when these guys did fall off, it actually caught them there along with some other stuff. But we are right at that hour mark here. And Jan, I know I said I was going to let you go, brother. So I will let you end the show with whatever you want to say. If you want to say Trump 2024, even though, that's just here in America, I'm not going to disappoint. I mean, I'll let you say it, but if you're looking for more support, the stage is yours, dude.
I mean, just I would say thank you for having me. Follow me on Instagram if you want to look more about me. And yeah, I'm just gonna try my best and maybe come to America in the future. We will see.
Heck yeah, brother. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on, dude, and you're always welcome here. Your insight, you've got my info now, And I'm interested to end the show now, so you can tell me what's going on with Roxon. So, I gotta ask you, can you brop with us?
What if I can?
All right, hey,
No way.
everybody, go follow him. Go follow Coach.
Thanks,
And
guys.
if you want to, you're here for a reason. We put out good content like this every week, so make sure you drop a subscribe notification icon down below. Till next time, as always, keep it WFO.